Good morning, everybody. Happy Christmas Eve. Thank you for being here, friends. We know you got many choices to make every single day. And we're always grateful that you choose to spend some time with us. So thank you. Crazy week. Hope you're enjoying some time with your family and friends, or not, depending on how it goes in your life these days. As a reminder, please consider joining our team. Do all the things. We are crowdfunded here. Want to support the channel? Best way to do that is at Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, at Factsstillmatter. Also a gifting goal today. Please consider subscribing to YouTube. We're streaming on YouTube, also streaming on Twitch. Please consider doing that as well. Subscribing to those locations. We'd really appreciate that. Also, don't forget to join our Discord. You can find the link to the Discord in the link tree that is in my bio. You can also, by the way, we just passed 125,000 followers yesterday. So thank you all very, very much. Really appreciate that. It still blows me away that happens, and it's just like crazy. So humbly speaking, thank you very, very much. I appreciate you guys. There's a couple of links I want to call your attention to that are in the link tree. Two merch stores. The first one, it says Tobias. It happens to be my son. If you want to go check out some of his original artwork, you can do that. And also the Facts HQ, which is also at factsstillmatter.site. You can pick up this shirt, PBS, NPR, FTD, as well as a whole bunch of others. There's some holiday themed merch in there. Traitor to the patriarchy, women don't know you shit. It's a variety of items, and in particular the press piece. I want to talk about that 60-minute story. We didn't get a chance to cover it yesterday, but it's been bothering me, and we'll talk about that. So again, thank you all for being here. Tapping is clapping, liking is loving, sharing is caring, and thank you again for being here. So last night there was a bunch of other documents that were dropped, and because this administration and all involved are so inept, things perhaps got released that maybe shouldn't have been released. We're going to talk about a few of those things this morning. And I just want to remind people that apparently what I'm about to say should not surprise anybody. I am not defending Bill Clinton at all. If he's connected to this in any way, then put that motherfucker under the fucking jail. But the Trump administration and the Department of Justice, in a weird way, is basically going against the things that they said they were going to do. Part of the reason that Donald Trump directed Pam Bondi to investigate Bill Clinton was so that they could say, in my opinion, that there's an open investigation into this, therefore a lot of the items can't be released. Well, apparently that doesn't really matter because of all the images that were released that included Bill Clinton. Well, Clinton himself has come out with a statement saying, listen, don't let me hold this up. We believe the Department of Justice is covering a bunch of shit. Go ahead and release it. So what's the excuse now? And don't forget, there was directions given specifically by Mr. Trump. This goes back a ways. In November, Trump posted publicly on Truth Social asking Attorney General Pam Bondi and the DOJ to investigate Jeffrey's involvement and relationships, including with Bill Clinton and others, Larry Summers, etc., to determine what was going on with them and with Epstein. Following Trump's statement, Bondi announced that she had directed a top federal prosecutor, Jay Clayton, to investigate ties between Jeffrey and Trump's political opponents, including Clinton. This direction came in the political context of pressure around the release of the files, which were mandated to be released publicly by bipartisan law that Trump signed. Critics, including some lawmakers, have said that such investigations appear to be politically motivated, you think, or a distraction from the document release issue, rather than based on evidence of prosecutable wrongdoing arising from the files themselves. Independent fact-checking and reporting indicate there is no verified evidence from the released files that Clinton committed any criminal acts connected to Epstein. Trump's stated claims about specific allegations, including private island trips, have been publicly disputed by administration officials, including Susie Wiles. In that story that was released last week by Vanity Fair, she talked about it. There's no evidence. In fact, she said she told the president that there's no evidence. What's the quote here? Let me see if I can find it. She said, Trump was wrong about Bill Clinton and Epstein, shows internal contradiction to the president's claims, reinforces misinformation narrative. So she even talked to him about it. She's like, no, that didn't happen. So what's interesting to me, more importantly, is the fact that because they've been running this entire thing through a series of lies, all the lies are catching up to them, and their incompetence and their corruption and their obstruction of justice. Part of the files that came out last night And there's a group called Jmail. We will post this in the Discord link. Mods, if you guys could put that in the general chatting, I'd appreciate it. There's some examples of items that they either didn't redact or forgot to redact, including references to Donald Trump's trip to the island. So as the reporting goes, one of the files that was released last night is an email saying that Donald Trump traveled on Jeffrey's private jet many more times than previously has been reported or that we were made aware of. The email was sent on the 7th of January, 2020, and is part of an email chain which includes a subject heading, quote, RE, Epstein Flight Records. The sender and recipient are redacted, but at the bottom of the email is Assistant U.S. Attorney, Southern District of New York, with the name redacted. The email states he, being Trump, is listed as a passenger on at least 8 flights between 1993 and 1996, including at least 4 flights on which Maxwell was also present. He is listed as having traveled with, among others, and at various times, Marla Maples, his daughter Tiffany, and his son Eric. On one flight in 1993, he and Epstein are the only 2 listed passengers. On another, the only 3 passengers are Epstein, Trump, and a then 20-year-old with a person's name redacted. It goes on. Quote, on 2 other flights, 2 of the passengers, respectively, were women who would be possible witnesses in a Maxwell case. In 2022, Maxwell was sentenced to 20 years in prison for crimes, including conspiracy to entice minors to travel to engage in illegal acts, etc. Trump was a friend of Epstein, as you know. In addition, that trove of documents that was released, what the Department of Justice is now saying is, and this is breaking news, the U.S. Department of Justice says nearly 30,000 additional pages of documents relating to Jeffrey have been released. It urges caution on some that reference the U.S. president without specifying which ones. Quote, some of these documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims made against President Trump that were submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election. And how do they know that they're untrue? Okay. To be clear, the claims are unfounded and false, and if they had a shred of credibility, they certainly would have been weaponized against President Trump already. Nevertheless, out of our commitment to the law and transparency, the DOJ is releasing these documents with legally required protections for Jeffrey's victims, survivors. So let's see if we can unpack that a little bit. The DOJ already tried to get out ahead of this because of their own incompetence, right? Their own incompetence, not being careful how they release things, releasing information that was redacted and then redacting it, including Donald Trump's name. We talked about the disgusting portion yesterday with his proclivity to paying extra attention to a particular part of a woman's anatomy to the point where they were both raw, as we reported. But now there's evidence to completely contradict what the president has said about these trips. First of all, St. John's Island is too small to land a plane on. So it requires you to either be ferried over there, shuttled over there, or whatever that would look like. So that is the interesting piece, right, about how this whole thing is, say, I was never at the island, yet accusations being made. What I find interesting is that there's information in here, in these documents, right, that reference at least 8 trips, right? And by the way, Susie Wiles. So do we not want to believe the chief of staff of the president? She herself said that there is no credible evidence of Bill Clinton being on these islands. Again, I'm not here to defend Bill Clinton. I want anybody and everybody connected to this, whether it be Mick Jagger, Bill Gates. I don't give a fuck who it is. If you are a part of this, or if you knew about this shit and you didn't say anything, then I want your fucking ass under the jail. But the president has been very public with his denials about where he was or wasn't, including this statement. This was at that infamous meeting that when he was in Scotland, and this is what he had to say.
By the way, I never went to the island. I never had the privilege of going to his island, and I did turn it down, but a lot of people in Palm Beach were invited to his island. In one of my very good moments, I turned it down. I didn't want to go to his island.
Okay, so now the right, in defense of that, they're going to make this a semantics argument. But it's easy for them to say that all these people were at the island, but Trump wasn't. But yet Trump's on the travel records, including trips when it's just him and J.E., and in one case is a 20-year-old girl. Okay, this was just last night at that presser that he did last night, talking about his golden armada. Let me just start this again. When asked the same question, and again doubling down on his denial.
He was at Epstein's island a lot. I wasn't. I never went there, by the way. But fortunately, it's nice. But I never went there. But a lot of people did go there. Now he was at Epstein's Island a lot.
He's talking about
I
Clinton.
wasn't. I never went there, by the way.
He's talking about Clinton. So again, what do you want to believe? Here's the thing. This is the way I look at this whole thing, and I've been trying to think about this objectively. You guys know me. Cool. Oh, you're so sweet, Knight. You're so sweet. What a nice little boy. I'm glad you're here today, little puppy. Do you need a hug? And Knight 32, meet the chat. Chat, have fun. What I find interesting is because this entire cover-up, and that's what we'll call it, because this entire cover-up has been is a cover-up being led by incompetent people, and this is what you get. This is what you get. You get the incompetence of Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and everybody else that's involved in this, right? They're the ones who are responsible to try to protect the predators involved. We discussed this yesterday. The lengths to which they're going to protect predators, right? And they are screwing this up right and left. I mentioned there's this group called Jmail, and we'll put the link because of this massive download of information that came down the pipe last night, including some more information we're going to play today. I'm going to play some sound from Lawrence O'Donnell and others. Because the Department of Justice is so incompetent, they made mistakes by releasing things they probably did not want to go out into the press because it contradicts their entire story. So one example is, let me see if I can find it. Hang on one second. There's one email that was dated July the 9th, 2019, and it is drafted by, or it comes from, hang on one second, let me just find it's written to, I'll get that in a second. The name of the person that it's written to has been redacted, but it's signed by the Violent Crimes Section, Crimes Against Children, Human Trafficking Unit, okay? That is one of the documents that dropped last night. In that, it says, this is, again, it's dated July the 9th, 2019, subject R.E. Epstein update. Of the 10 co-conspirators, three have been located in Florida and served grand jury subpoenas. One in Boston, one in New York, and one in Connecticut were located and served. 4 of the 10 are outstanding, with attempts having been made. One is a wealthy businessman in Ohio. A lead is being sent to CV. The remaining 3 are currently out of pocket. The team, 8 SAs, TFOs, 2 assistant U.S. attorneys, are flying out tonight, tomorrow to various locations in Florida to interview approximately 25 victims, survivors. The 1-800 call FBI line is up and running. We have received approximately 45 calls, which we're in the process of vetting out. Let me know if you need anything else. Okay, so I share that with you because these are some of the documents that were in the possession of the FBI. That's where this information came from, which means one could assume that if this was in the possession of the FBI knew this information exists, which means there are other people that have been named, other co-conspirators. In this case, it's 10. There are as many as we don't know how many. We know that there are 1,200 survivors at a minimum. Here's the thing, and I mentioned this a little bit yesterday, because Kash Patel, in his infamous Senate hearing, was asked a question about that topic, and this is what he had to say.
I have not reviewed the entirety of it myself, but a good amount.
Would it be fair to say that Mr. Epstein trafficked young women, including in some instances minors, for sex to himself?
That was specifically the allegations in the 2018 indictment in the Southern District of New York.
Okay. Who else did he traffic these young women to?
In terms of what the investigation, again, going back to 2008, Mr. Acosta, who limited the investigation and limited the search warrants and limited the parameters of the investigation, The only thing we are able to speak to publicly, because he was given a non-prosecution agreement by Mr. Acosta, is that first time period from, I believe, don't quote me on this, 97 to 2001-ish. And then when the Trump administration courageously reopened it.
Excuse me for interrupting, but I'm going to run out of time. You've seen most of the files. Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these young women to?
Girls.
Besides himself.
Children.
Himself. There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals. And the information we have, again, is limited.
So the answer is no one?
For the information that we have.
Well, that's flat out fucking perjury. Because they had possession of this particular letter referencing 10 co-conspirators, and throughout the documents, I'm sure we're going to see that names are redacted. So that is a bold-face fucking lie. Now, it's one of two things. Either Cash just wants to play the cool guy and go, by the way, and go out and get BMWs on taxpayer dollars. We'll talk about that in a moment. Or he's lying. So you've either got a incredibly incompetent and corrupt, mediocre on his best day, piece of shit man that completely has been left in the dark by everybody involved, that he can just play the part, put on his women's medium jacket with his cool patches and his bling, or he's lying. It's one or the other. Because again, the information that I shared with you is that there are references to 10 co-conspirators. This was dated July 9th, 2019. This was in possession of the FBI. They had this information. This is part of what was turned over. Did that memo not make it to Cash's desk? So then why would you then go on the record with that 10 toes down claim saying that the information that we have, according to the information that we have, he did not traffic any women or young girls, children, by the way, to anybody other than himself. Ghislaine Maxwell got convicted for that. People have lost, Prince Andrew lost his princedom, right? With that being said, I don't want people to forget this, because there's also additional names. Let's see if I can find that list. People have just sort of just like disappeared from public eye. After the files, people expected names. Instead, people got censored files. But what most people didn't notice, in these 9 personalities disappeared quietly. No trials, no explanations. There are billionaires, CEOs, fund managers who disappeared quietly. Not a list of crimes necessarily, but this is just a list of quiet exits. People either stepped down, lost their platforms, retreated from public power, were removed from roles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, including Leon Black. Leon stepped down as CEO of Apollo Global Management, publicly acknowledged financial ties to Epstein, and then influenced, reduced, not prosecuted. Glenn Dubin withdrew from public-facing finance roles. Media presence sharply declined. Finance didn't explode. It sealed itself. Okay. Bill Richardson, removed from the international diplomatic roles, named in civil rights filings, denied wrongdoing, career influence ended quietly. George Mitchell disappeared from advisory and policy circles, no investigation, no comeback. Politics chose distance, not defense. Les Wexner stepped down from public leadership, ended foundation roles, cut ties, and vanished from influence. No trial, no arrest. Prince Andrew lost royal duties, removed from public file, settled civil cases without admission. This wasn't punishment. In his case, it was like containment, I guess you could say. Marvin Minsky posthumously removed from honors. Institutions quietly distanced themselves from him. Alan Dershowitz lost institutional prestige, shifted from academic authority to defensive and media presence. Interesting, right? Epstein didn't expose criminals. He exposed how power protects itself. When risk spreads, careers end quietly, roles dissolve silently, names fade without explanation. Justice is loud, containment is silent, and silence is what followed Epstein. Those people just kind of disappeared. They sort of just lost prestige, lost prominence, but never held accountable. Nope. A system built by people who look like me to benefit people who look like me, to protect people who look like me. So again, when your entire persona in regards to this in particular, the Epstein files, is to attempt to distract, and the distraction game just isn't working anymore because you are incompetent. This is what happens. This is what happens. I just want to see this for a second. So beautiful seeing the great work of the mods in real time. Great job, guys. Absolutely. Best mods on TikTok. No doubt about it. So who's next to fall? Who's next? I think it's interesting that Pam Bondi is potentially facing criminal action because she's the one she's the head of the Department of Justice. And we went through this yesterday, this, what was it called again? Inherent contempt, where Congress can basically arrest her. If it doesn't happen very often, but there's a lever that can be pulled. Kash Patel, he's got to go. I mean, this is just crazy. I mean, just the flat out lie in that hearing. I mean, we knew that, but now there's even more evidence. I mean, first of all, to go there and say that he only trafficked 1,200 girls to himself. I mean, my goodness. And yet here you are trying to say that Bill Clinton was involved. Make up your mind. I mean, seriously, make up your mind. None of us here defending Clinton. He went out publicly and said, just release all the files. Go ahead, release them. So what's the excuse now? What's the excuse now? So we literally have tranches of information that was released overnight last night. More files, more photos, more emails, financial records, all kinds of shit that's going to continue to leak out. The FBI, the Department of Justice have violated the law. We went through the exercise yesterday, and we'll talk more about it today. But there's a few more things I want to get to, a few more layers to this particular story. Get a request. I'll get you a little bit later, Timo. Hang in there. Okay, so we've got the media circus that's crazy, especially those people that are on the right that are also clamoring for this information to be released, which is kind of what we wanted. But I want to look at this analytically, and then we're actually going to play the 60-minute CCOT story, because that, to me, this is the warning that I've been sharing with you guys about the suppression of the press. We'll talk about Barry Weiss, who is literally a far right-wing whack job who's now in charge of CBS, who's executive producer at CBS News. She's the one that pulled the story. Now, I'll play the story because it was released in Canada. It's been now streaming on YouTube. I'll play it for you. We'll go through the highlights because that's we don't need all the other in-between stuff, but it's pretty obvious why they didn't want it to air. So what the administration is going to do is it's going to try to find a way to get out ahead of it. They'll prepare their press, and then maybe it will eventually be released down the road. I highly doubt it, but it speaks exactly to what we're talking about here, right? The cover-up. Everything is a cover-up. They can't. If what they did in CCOT they told us it wasn't that bad. They said, nothing to see here. Don't worry about it. It's totally fine. Nothing to see here. It's totally fine. If that were the case, then they should have no issue with an independent press. Yeah, but they do have issues with independent press now, don't they? And we're going to get into some of the statements the president made last night about, the gold fucking armada, the Trump armada. Are we not on YouTube this morning? I don't even know. Can you add the 988 hotline? Yes, good call. We have to be careful about the 988 line, and we will be. But yes, that's always an opportunity. Here's another document. Let's see. This is in regard to co-conspirators. Redacted does not need to head out. We made contact with someone last night in New York. Contact was made with this person. Attempts were made. Redacted and Brunel. Maxwell's being in Boston today. Yeah. Anyway. Long story short, this entire administration is completely incompetent, and they cannot get out of their own way. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start to kind of break down how the media has been covering this, and I'm my opinion on mainstream media, which is why I would say support independent journalists. If you want to support the channel, best way to do that here is through crowdfunding, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo. No goal today. I would just appreciate your support. Thank you all very much. So the specific references to Bill Clinton are obviously distraction. So this gentleman was being interviewed. This is Barry Levine. Was being interviewed last night as part of a panel as we got some of the information, or we got the misdirection from the Trump administration trying to say, well, look at Clinton. And then, of course, yesterday we saw all these comments about hot tubs and et cetera, et cetera. And then we know that the lie and the manipulation of the information about Diana Ross and Michael Jackson that wasn't even at the same event. They tried to allude that that was happening as well. Nobody's here defending Bill Clinton. Throw him out of the fucking jail. But that's what's happened now with the poisoning of the minds of people that are drinking from the fascist tears bottle. So here's a little sound for you, and then we'll talk about it.
Showing all of these photos of Bill Clinton. You would think that would be part of the investigation. So that doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. Don't forget, there was an investigation. Donald Trump wanted Bill Clinton investigated. Okay, is he not being investigated? Doesn't seem like it.
We did learn that there's 1,200 victims, more than we initially thought. From the DOJ. The DOJ also said, and this is most important to me, and I think the survivors, DOJ communications on investigations into Epstein and his associates and details of any immunity deals. And so I'm looking for the FD 302 forms, which are the FBI witness reports that Representative Tom Massey says pertains to 20 men that Jeffrey Epstein trafficked these children to. And from the initial look that I made earlier, I don't see any of the 302 forms. However, we may see them in a later document dump.
I mean, Stacey, just to state the obvious here, it's just definitionally impossible that it's random what we got today, right? If you're putting out 10%, someone's making a decision.
That's exactly right. It's a really, really good point. What a great question. Obviously, it's not random. They are trying to calculate how information is going to release. You know, like late night, I wouldn't be surprised if you see some over the next couple of days buried in Christmas cheer, you know, trying to hide it under the veil of darkness. BBC's been watching, other news agencies around the world are watching as well, right? So it's obvious they're trying to do this in stages, violating the law.
On what that 10% is.
Yeah, exactly. And it seems like Todd Blanche is the propped up announcer of it. But to Barry's point, it's so significant that President Trump directed Pam Bondi to investigate Bill Clinton, directly named him in a social media post along with other Democrats. And then she answered the call and appointed a U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York to investigate.
And others, yeah.
And the policy of the Justice Department is you don't release anything related to an ongoing investigation, especially photographs about the subject of an ongoing investigation. And obviously it seems to be a disingenuous subject, being Bill Clinton being ordered to be investigated at this late stage of the game. It certainly did seem targeted at the time and still does. But why would they go against their own policies and then release Bill Clinton's photos? It
Exactly.
kind of makes a farce of this entire situation.
I mean, it really, right, if your whole point, if you were going to hide behind an ongoing investigation, the one that you've got going is into Bill Clinton. And yet we got a whole bunch of pictures of him in a pool and a jacuzzi and whatnot.
Yeah, and I'll just add one more building block, which is that the legislation, the Epstein Files Transparency Act, actually has an exception.
To me, that's why I wanted to play that clip for you, because that's exactly the point, right? The DOJ policy is we don't share information publicly in the midst of an active investigation. So if you wanted to use that as your defense, right? Obviously, they needed cover. So they're like, shit, we can't try to spin this and distract people by sharing Clinton pictures if there's an active investigation going on. Because if there's an active investigation going on, our own policy says we can't share information. So again, when you're led by incompetent people, not knowing which end is up, this is what you get. So the layers to, again, the lengths and layers to which they are going to try, again, I want people to remember this, what they're doing, the lengths to which they are going, lying to the American people, basically flipping their noses, flipping off the American public, the world public, to protect fucking predators. That's what they're doing. That's what this entire thing is about. How can we protect the people who perpetrated these crimes? Not the survivors. By the way, there's reporting that many of the survivors faces we've seen before, that infamous day in D.C. when the president tried to intimidate them by flying fighter jets overhead, there's reporting that they're going to come back to D.C. in January to make Congress hold the DOJ accountable. The fact that it takes that, I believe women. And if we did, a lot of this may not have happened. We reported yesterday that Maria Farmer filed a lawsuit back in 1996. 1996. And it sat for decades. She finally gets justification about what she claimed. And here we are. Here we are. The ironic part of this is what happened overnight. When the Clinton administration or Bill Clinton himself, through spokespeople, came out and said, just release the damn files. We got nothing to hide. Go ahead, release them. So what's the response going to be from the White House? How are they going to spin it now? What's MAGA going to say? When Clinton said we can release it, that must be fake. They'll try to make it up. Try to say that's not what he said. Take it out of context. But again, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. Nothing to see here. It's just people trying to protect predators. An entire global network of people trying to protect predators. It's fucking wild, the lengths to which people are going. We talk in this space often about trying to find some common ground. Nope. Can't find common ground about this because people in the cult do not or are not willing to accept the fact that Donald Trump is connected to this. I'm not making an assertion that he's committed crimes. There's a lot of fucking evidence. There's a lot of evidence. There's Katie Johnson. There's other Jane Does. We read through that disgusting, and I won't go through it again yesterday about the things that he did to a young girl. The statements that Jeffrey Epstein made, like she's a good one, right? 14-year-old girl. Okay. 14-year-old girl. A child, 14, shopping. Jeffrey Epstein taking these young girls shopping, training bras, etc. So Donald Trump is absolutely linked to this. His followers are just unwilling to accept the fact that he actually could be the person that we've been saying he is. Yeah, pretty fucking sad that you'll go that far to defend this guy. Here's this is the president last night addressing questions about the files.
Photos of Bill Clinton in the Epstein files, and can you commit to their full release by the end of the year? Some of the victims were protesting that too many of them were redacted.
I know there are a lot of people that are angry about all of the pictures of other people, but I think it's terrible. Look, I like Bill Clinton. I've always gotten along with Bill Clinton. I've been nice to him. He's been nice to me. We've always gotten along. Respect him. I hate to see photos come out of him, but this is what the Democrats, mostly Democrats, and a couple of bad Republicans are asking for. But no, I don't like the pictures of Bill Clinton being shown. I don't like the pictures of other people being shown. I think it's a terrible thing. I think Bill Clinton's a big boy. He can handle it. But you probably have pictures being exposed of other people that innocently met Jeffrey Epstein years ago, many years ago.
Oh, hear that little deflection there? Hear that at the end? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's listen to that again.
Were you surprised by the number of photos of Bill Clinton in the Epstein files? And can you commit to their full release by the end of the year? Some of the victims were protesting that too many of them were redacted.
I know there are a lot of people that are angry about all of the pictures of other people, but I think it's terrible. Look, I like Bill Clinton. I've always gotten along with Bill Clinton. I've been nice to him. He's been nice to me. We've always gotten along. Respect him. I hate to see photos come out of him, but this is what the Democrats, mostly Democrats, and a couple of bad Republicans are asking for. But no, I don't like the pictures of Bill Clinton being shown. I don't like the pictures of other people being shown. I think it's a terrible thing. I think Bill Clinton's a big boy. He can handle it. But you probably have pictures being exposed of other people that innocently met Jeffrey Epstein years ago, many years ago.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. So again, this is reporting from Politico last night. Tens of thousands of documents that appeared to be from the e-files were briefly posted on the JD's website before disappearing without explanation. The documents reviewed by Politico were available to download through a justice.gov link early Monday afternoon and remained available for several hours. The link was not visible on the Justice Department's website, where officials have been posting documents from the files. It is required to disclose under a law passed by Congress and signed, but the URL corresponded with an anticipated 8th data set of documents that officials were expected to release. That disappeared. The data set appeared to be next in the sequence of documents that the Justice Department began releasing pertaining to the decades-long investigation and prosecution of J.E. and Ghislaine Maxwell. Justice Department spokesperson didn't respond to Politico's request for comment on the new documents. The material included tens of thousands of government documents and emails, as well as several dozen videos from the Bureau of Prisons. The materials describe 2008 negotiation between the Justice Department and lawyers for Epstein as he attempted to settle claims that he trafficked girls. They include internal 2019 deliberations by the Trump Justice Department and federal prosecutors in New York as they neared criminal charges against Epstein over his trafficking ring. The records show prosecutors' attempts to trace Epstein's vast financial empire and far-flung properties, his ties to prominent financial industry executives, and records of investigators' efforts to track the movements of Jeffrey and Maxwell. They also catalog the internal deliberations of the Justice Department's officials, most whose identities are largely redacted, as they dealt with the internal demands and pressures from superiors related to the Epstein probe. Interesting that a lot of the field workers were doing the work and that they were facing resistance and pressure. Whose administration? Oh, that's right. That was the Trump administration at the time. And they show how prosecutors pivoted from the shock of the Epstein's 2019 suicide in jail while he awaited trial to pursuing his co-conspirators. Members of Congress who demand the release and helped overwhelmingly pass a law this year requiring the Trump administration to publicly disclose everything have accused the Justice Department of breaking the law by failing to release the complete set on the December the 19th deadline. The DOJ has vowed to release the documents on a rolling basis over the next few weeks. The documents posted and then removed from the DOJ website Monday paint the clearest picture yet of prosecutors' efforts to amass evidence against Jeffrey. After Epstein's August 2019 death, prosecutors produced a 7-page memo on co-conspirators they might consider charging and followed that with an 86-page report in December, according to the files. They also produced a 13-page memo of corporate prosecutions they might pursue and a 26-page memo regarding other target prosecutions prosecutors considered pursuing. Only references to the memos, not the documents themselves, appeared in the tranche temporarily published Monday. If eventually made public, the memos could show the calculations prosecutors made about whether to charge people associated with the trafficking operation. Prosecutors ultimately only charged Epstein and Maxwell. That's the whole story, in my opinion, right? We're going to release little bits of information. Don't forget, there's a government shutdown pending at the end of January. We know that that's out there. So what are they going to do? Again, like I said, when you have a team of completely incompetent people who have lied from the very beginning of this entire investigation, lied from everything, from Kash Patel to Pam Bondi, the files are on my desk, to Todd Blanche lying in his interview with Kristen Welker over the weekend about that it wasn't political. If it wasn't political, then why is it that you went to such an effort to publish pictures of Bill Clinton, even though there was apparently an open investigation into him? If that were the case, you did that. You put up pictures of Donald Trump, you redacted them, and then you want to claim that it's not political? MAGA, just so you know, the Justice Department run by Pam Bondi thinks you all are stupid. They think that you will believe that. They think that you will believe that Donald Trump had nothing to do, again, that the president of the United States had nothing to do with this, but everybody else is. So yesterday we saw the chirping in the chat. Oh, Clinton's in the hot tub. You guys are screwed. And we're all in the entire chat's like, we don't give a fuck. Arrest them all. We don't fucking care. Now, a statement from Clinton and his team. Let me see if I got the statement here. Quote, the DOJ needs to quit protecting the rich, powerful, and politically connected. Someone or something is being protected. We do not know whom, what, or why, but we do know this. We need no such protection. That's the statement from the Clinton camp. The quote reflects Clinton's core public line. He's calling for the immediate release of all files that mention him, including any and all photos. He alleged that the partial release so far appears selective, implying that, quote, someone or something, not necessarily him personally, is being shielded by the DOJ. He also emphasizes he does not need protection and wants full transparency in all files involving him. Clinton's team has also stressed separately in other statements reported by outlets that Clinton cut ties with Epstein long before Epstein's criminal actions became publicly known. Clinton denies any wrongdoing and maintains he never had knowledge of Epstein's trafficking crimes. I'm not buying any of that. But the fact that he says, go ahead and release it. I don't care. I don't need it hiding. So then what's the argument going to be today? When you guys go to your right-wing spaces, when you travel around the web and you look for your little safe spaces, what's your argument going to be now? How are you? What are you going to say? So Bill Clinton implicated in these pictures, right? He said, "Go ahead, release it all. Go ahead." What's your defense? What's your defense? You're going to find somebody else to try to blame? Okay, that's fine. I'm going to play some sound from. But Lawrence O'Donnell's been doing some great work, and he summarizes a lot of the new information that's becoming available, including an interaction with Marla Maples, who was Donald's second wife. Okay? So I'll just play the sound for you and we'll talk about it.
Well, of course they are bad at the cover-up. Donald Trump doesn't have to worry about how well a cover-up of the Epstein files is executed by his Justice Department, because the United States Supreme Court has made Donald Trump the very first president in history to have immunity from criminal prosecution for anything he does as president of the United States. Because the Supreme Court knew that presidential immunity did not exist in the Constitution when Richard Nixon was president, Republican Richard Nixon knew that he could face criminal prosecution for his cover-up of the Watergate burglary and other crimes that he committed while he was president, and that's why he got a pardon from President Gerald Ford after his vice president, Gerald Ford, became president, after Richard Nixon resigned from the presidency. Richard Nixon knew he needed that pardon. Everyone working for Donald Trump knows that they do not have the same immunity that the Supreme Court gave to Donald Trump, and everyone working for Donald Trump should know that Richard Nixon's White House chief of staff, his White House counsel, his attorney general, and dozens of other people working for Richard Nixon were convicted of crimes and sent to prison. And so, if you are Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer, Todd Blanche, and if you are now managing a cover-up of the Epstein file.
Somebody just made this comment, Heidi. If Gerald Ford had not pardoned Richard Nixon, the fucking precedent was set. That was just fucking bullshit, but whatever.
In your position as the Trump Deputy Attorney General, you know that only Donald Trump can grant you immunity from prosecution for anything you do as Deputy Attorney General. Donald Trump can do that by issuing a blanket pardon to everyone working for him that would, in effect, give them the same immunity Donald Trump already knows that he has. And so Donald Trump's Attorney General and Donald Trump's Deputy Attorney General are blissfully violating federal law tonight, as they have been every night since Friday, by refusing to release all of the Epstein files.
Yep.
They know Donald Trump can pardon them for any federal crime they might commit.
Correct.
When asked about the Epstein files today, Donald Trump said, "They are asking me questions about Jeffrey Epstein. I thought that was finished." Those were his exact words. If Donald Trump really thought that was finished, that would be more public evidence of Donald Trump's neurological decline. But it seems that it was really just a standard Trump lie, just like the other lie Donald Trump told about Jeffrey Epstein today. Donald Trump said, quote, "Everybody was friendly with this guy."
Yeah.
That is a lie. Most rich people in New York had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein back when Donald Trump was publicly calling Jeffrey Epstein a terrific guy.
That's correct. Just a little bit of context. They talk about one of the reasons that these two became friends, Jeffrey and Donald, was because they were both considered pariahs in the New York, upper echelon, elite community. Nobody liked them. They were despised. So they became this counterculture reaction, building their own wealth in sort of in opposition to the established money, which if you can put your critical thinking hat on, would probably make sense as to why Jeffrey Epstein had video and photos and all kinds of things on all these same people that used to despise him as a way to say, you know, you fucked me in the past. You don't want me in your club. Well, I fucking got you now. I got the receipts. That's just my theory, right? But nobody liked them. No one liked either one of these guys. They had to buy their way into these clubs. They weren't welcomed in. They were not welcomed in. So I've always believed that part of what he did, the reason he had such comprehensive records and audio, video files and photographs everywhere is so that he could use it as leverage. Say, remember when you said I couldn't come to your party? Well, you remember, you know this picture that I've got of you and young girls? So yeah, just remember that. Remember that when I come to you for money. Remember that when I come to you for your connections. Seriously. It's a fair conclusion to make, isn't it? Again, just my opinion.
Now, my wife is standing here.
So you're going to hear from Howard Lutnick.
A terrific guy.
Now, my wife is standing here. So she looks at me and I look at her and we say, I'm sorry, we have to go. And we left. And in the 6 or 8 steps it takes to get from his house to my house, my wife and I decided that I will never be in the room with that disgusting person ever again.
Interesting.
So I was never in the room with him socially.
So this was from October 1st. This is the Commerce Secretary in this administration, Howard Lutnick.
For business or for even philanthropy. If that guy was there, I wasn't going because he's gross.
So he knew.
He lived next door to Jeffrey Epstein, would have nothing to do with him. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump's incompetent and clownish Secretary of Commerce lived next door to Jeffrey Epstein, and he refused to have anything to do with Jeffrey Epstein. So no, everybody was not friendly with that guy. Donald Trump was very friendly with that guy. And at the height of Jeffrey Epstein's sexual abuse of children and sex trafficking, Donald Trump said in 2002, I've known Jeff for 15 years, terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do. And many of them are on the younger side. Mm-hmm. The younger side. How many 48-year-old men do you know who invite 14-year-old girls to their parties? Jeffrey Epstein did that. And so did the 48-year-old Donald Trump. The New York Times reports that Donald Trump held parties at his home in Florida where he invited 14-year-old girls. Tina Davis, who worked with Ford models in the mid-1990s, said...
Trigger warnings on this, okay? There's some references in here of trafficking, so I'm just gonna give you that blanket trigger warning, just FYI. I'm going to back up just a little bit. This is reporting by the New York Times. Again, the reason that we have the press, the reason that journalism is so incredibly important is because of stuff like this.
Florida, where he invited 14-year-old girls. Tina Davis, who worked with Ford models in the mid-1990s, said in an interview that her Ford booker instructed her to get dressed up and attend a Mar-a-Lago party in late 1994. Just 14 and new to Miami, she was told to dress sexy, according to her mother, Sandra Coleman, who had accompanied her to Florida. 8 or 9 other models came along on the bus. All the girls were really young, Ms. Coleman recalled in an interview. Some of them could have been in training bras. When they arrived at Mar-a-Lago, Ms. Coleman said her daughter was promptly handed a glass of champagne. She took it away.
14. Just as I want to remind people, 14, 12, 13, 14 years old, some of them in training bras, okay?
But waiters kept offering more. Each time one of the middle-aged men at the party approached her daughter, Ms. Coleman would walk over and introduce herself as Ms. Davis's mother. During a trip to the bathroom, they ran into Mr. Trump's new wife, whom they had met earlier.
Marla.
Marla Maples clasped her hands, Ms. Coleman recalled, and looked her in the eye. Whatever you do, do not let her around any of these men, and especially my husband, she told Ms. Coleman.
This is the quote. Marla Maples clasped her hands. Ms. Coleman recalled and looked in her eye and said, quote, whatever you do, this is Marla Maples talking to the 14-year-old girl's mother, Quote, whatever you do, do not let her around any of these men, and especially my husband. She told Ms. Coleman, quote, protect her. Okay.
Protect her. 14 years old, invited to Donald Trump's home, handed champagne repeatedly. Unlike her former husband, Donald Trump, Marla Maples, Donald Trump's second wife, responded to New York Times inquiries about that story. The New York Times reports Ms. Maples denied making the comment, I would always protect young women in any way I could. She said, but I am sure I didn't specifically say that about my daughter's father.
Again, Ms. Maples denied making the comment, quote, I would always protect young women in any way that I could, she said, quote, but I am sure I didn't specifically say that about my daughter's father. Okay.
Donald Trump's second wife, Marla Maples, received a substantial financial settlement in her divorce from Donald Trump. The Times reports Mr. Epstein was a frequent guest at Mar-a-Lago parties. A woman who said Mr. Epstein trafficked her in the late 1990s and early 2000s recalled attending at least a half a dozen of the parties, beginning when she was 17. She told the New York Times that the invitations she received when she was 17 were, quote, to be Donald Trump's guest at Mar-a-Lago. According to one invitation she shared with the Times, the parties were open bar and no one checked IDs. She said Mr. Trump was always all over them, she recalled. A 20-year-old model who attended a Trump party at Mar-a-Lago told the New York Times, I had a glass of champagne and I immediately felt not well, Ms. Brock recalled, adding, I thought my drink had been spiked. According to the New York Times reporting, Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein attended parties at each other's homes. The Times reports one of the women, who has never before spoken publicly about the experience, told the Times that Mr. Epstein had coerced her into attending 4 parties at Mr. Epstein's home. Mr. Trump attended all 4, the woman said. At 2 of them, she said, Mr. Epstein directed her to have sex with other male guests. In an email among those released by Congress in November, Mr. Epstein boasted that he gave Mr. Trump a 20-year-old woman whom Mr. Epstein dated in the 1990s. In a 2010 deposition, Mr. Epstein was asked if he had ever socialized with Mr. Trump with girls under 18, and he did more than 3 dozen times during the deposition. Mr. Epstein invoked his constitutional right not to answer. At one of those parties, here's how Jeffrey Epstein introduced himself. Quote, I'm Jeffrey. I'm Don's best friend. That's how Jeffrey Epstein introduced himself to a beauty pageant contestant at one of Donald Trump's hotels. That contestant, Beatrice Kuhl, told the New York Times, quote, one of Mr. Trump's employees asked her to meet privately with him in a suite upstairs. Almost as soon as she arrived, Ms. Kuhl said, Mr. Trump began groping her, kissing her, and trying to lift her dress. I yelled, I screamed, I pushed him, she said. He didn't want to give up. She said she was withholding some details of what happened because she had been subject to anonymous threats. Ms. Kuhl also provided the Times with pictures of documents corroborating her participation in the pageant and of herself with Mr. Trump. So that is a case of sexual assault by Donald Trump that has not previously been reported, that was reported there by the New York Times and not denied by Donald Trump when given an opportunity by the New York Times. Donald Trump has not been charged with anything connected with Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. Marina Lacerda spoke publicly for the first time outside of the Capitol on September 3rd.
My name is Marina Lacerda. I was minor victim 1 in federal indictment of Jeffrey Epstein in New York in 2019. I was one of dozens of girls that I personally know who were forced into Jeffrey's mansion on 9 East 71 Street in New York City when we were just kids. Today is the first time that I ever speak publicly about what happened to me.
The 2019 indictment of Jeffrey Epstein says this about minor victim 1, who we now know was Marina Lacerda. In or about 2002, minor victim 1 was recruited to engage in sex acts with Epstein and was repeatedly sexually abused by Epstein at the New York residence over a period of years. Epstein also encouraged and enticed minor victim 1 to recruit other girls to engage in paid sex acts, which she did. Epstein asked minor victim 1 how old she was, and minor victim 1 answered truthfully. She was 14 years old. Jenna Lisa Jones was also 14 years old.
I was only 14 years old when my friend brought me over to Jeffrey Epstein's house in Palm Beach in 2003. I had a terrible home life, but I was such an innocent kid then. I always did my best in school, and I had such a positive outlook on life. Until that day that I met Jeffrey, I have never been more scared in my life than I was that first time that he hurt me. I remember crying the entire way home, thinking about how I couldn't ever tell anyone about what actually happened in that house. This guy was so rich and had so many pictures with so many famous people, and no one would have ever believed me if I told them.
Congressman Ro Khanna believed her. Congressman Thomas Massie believed her, and the other survivors of Jeffrey Epstein who came to Washington. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene believed her and the other survivors. And together, those members of Congress were able to pass a law which ultimately passed in the House of Representatives almost unanimously, then passed the Senate unanimously, which requires the Trump Justice Department to release all of the Epstein files. The 14-year-old girls who were sure no one would believe them were finally heard this year, and their voices have changed the course of history.
So it's pretty disturbing to listen to that. I guess the question is people who are in the cult, people who will drink the Kool-Aid every single day. When they hear that, right? When they hear the things of what Donald Trump did, because it's either his word or the word of these survivors, right? It's pretty simple. It's not that hard, right? It's pretty simple. Who do you believe? Do you believe the dozens of women who've levied accusations? We don't talk about the Katie Johnson case enough here because it's so graphic. You guys know what I'm talking about. Only 12 or 13 years old, 4 instances of grape. We don't talk about that enough, and I think we will. It's graphic. But if it were not true, and it were defamation, then why hasn't Trump sued them? Why hasn't the president of the United States sued them for defamation? Maybe it's because they don't want discovery. See, this is what people who are 10 toes down supporters, this is what they aren't willing to accept. Everybody except Trump is lying. The young girls were lying. The witnesses were lying. The courts were lying. The judges were lying. The news was lying. Everybody was lying except him. Meanwhile, he lies to you every single day, and you laugh about it. You call it the weave. You say it's taken out of context, or that's not what he meant. That wasn't what his intention was, or all politicians lie. So how do you respond to this? An email by A from Balmoral asked J.E.'s associate Ghislaine Maxwell for inappropriate friends. New documents released by the U.S. Department of Justice show. The sender asks, have you found me some new inappropriate friends? And the sign-off reads, see ya, capital letter A. It was sent from an address using the alias The Invisible Man, a pen name. It was also used alongside a separate email address listed in Epstein's phone book as Duke of York. You know who that is. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has repeatedly denied all wrongdoing. He lost use of his Duke of York title following scrutiny over his links with Epstein. Elsewhere, Donald Trump was listed as a passenger on Epstein's private jet on 8 flights between 1993 and 1996. Trump has consistently denied any wrongdoing in relation to Epstein, and his presence on the flights does not indicate wrongdoing. This is true. Both emails appear in the largest batch so far of the files, the documents it holds relating to the late convicted offender, Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein reached a plea deal with prosecutors in 2008 after the parents of a 14-year-old girl told police in Florida that Epstein had molested their daughter. Photos of girls were found throughout the house, and he was convicted of soliciting prostitution from minors. He escaped a heavy jail sentence as a result of the deal. 11 years later, he was charged with running a network of underage girls for sex. He died in prison. Pressure's been building for months across the political spectrum. After initially resisting calls for the files release, U.S. President Trump reversed course and urged Republicans to support disclosure of the records. Congress then passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act unanimously, with the exception of Clay Higgins. A large collection of documents, including court and telephone records and thousands of images, was uploaded on Friday. Of course, we know about the redactions, image 468, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What more do you need to know? This is the email. This is from the Invisible Man. Again, references to Prince Andrew. I am up here at Balmoral Summer Camp for the royal family. Activities take place all day, and I am totally exhausted at the end of the day. The girls are completely shattered, and I will have to give them an early night today, and it's getting tiring splitting them up all the time. How's LA? Have you found me some new inappropriate friends? Let me know when you are coming over, as I'm free from the 25th of August until the 2nd of September and want to go somewhere hot and sunny with some fun people before having to put my nose firmly to the grindstone for the fall. Any ideas? Gratefully received. See ya, A. Yeah, but nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. One of the emails that was released overnight was sent on the 7th of January and is part of an email chain which includes the subject heading Epstein flight records. The sender and recipients are redacted, but at the bottom of the email is Assistant U.S. Attorney, Southern District of New York, with the name redacted. The email states, Trump, is listed as a passenger on at least 8 flights between 1993 and 1996, including at least 4 flights on which Maxwell was also present. He is also listed as having traveled with, among others, and at various times, Marla Maples, his daughter Tiffany, and his son Eric. On one flight in 1993, he and Jeffrey are the only 2 passengers listed. On another, the only 3 passengers are Epstein, Trump, and then 20-year-old girl, which I think we're referencing as the sound we just played. It goes on and on and on. On 2 other flights, 2 of the passengers, respectively, were women who would be possible witnesses in a Maxwell case. Again, what more does anyone need to see? What more? What more is there to see? And this is the question we have to ask people who are in denial. I'm going to try to be very careful here how I say this. What evidence would you need to see? Would you need to see video? You obviously don't believe women. You wanted to try to deflect and say, see, it's all Bill Clinton. And then Clinton comes out and says, release it all. Go ahead. Release it all. Release all the video. You wanted to unalive Hunter Biden because of a picture of a drug addict. You made all these claims about his corruption. You made all these claims about Joe Biden because you saw a picture of Joe Biden with his granddaughter after his son Beau lost his life. And you turned that into this entire thing because it made you feel good. It made you feel good. That was sufficient evidence for you to make all these claims, right? Well, we have pictures. We have flight records. We have statements. We have emails. We have names. We have Donald Trump's name appearing in statements and then not appearing in statements. This one in particular. Hang on one second. It is so disturbing, the lengths to which people will go. So there was this story that was released and then it was redacted. And I'll do my best to not make it too graphic, but she confided in me, again, this girl was 14 years old. She confided in me about her casual friendship with Donald. Mr. Trump, again, his name is in this particular file, and then it was redacted. Mr. Trump definitely seemed to have a thing for her, and she told me how he kept going on and on about her pert nipples. Donald Trump liked doing certain things to them until they were raw. And then that document got pulled down and then reposted, and his name was redacted. So is that not enough? Is that not enough? How then do we move through this process when we have so many people in our country? Prove it. Again, prove it. You see what I'm talking about? You see what I mean? You see what I mean? This is my point. That's your comment. Prove it. What would that proof look like to you, Sirax? What would that proof look like? When would you believe it? What would it take? You wanted the files released. You thought it was everybody but Trump. Bill Clinton's pictures showed up. Bill Clinton said, go ahead and release everything. Donald Trump's name appears in here more than anybody else's. More than anybody else's. And there was a document that include graphic depictions of the things that he liked to do to young girls until their nipples were fucking raw. And then that document was pulled down. Then the document was put back up with his name redacted. Is that not enough? What do you need? What is it that you need to see? It might be better for you just to say, I don't give a fuck that he did it. I really don't care. They were 14 years old. He invited 14-year-old girls to his parties, gave them champagne. Donald Trump's ex-wife said, don't let these girls be alone with any of these men, including my husband. Do you not care about any of it? I mean, we know you don't. But instead, the trans community is the threat. Again, that document has been redacted. It's been redacted. His name was mentioned numerous times. Again, I'll try not to be graphic. Donald Trump liked doing certain things to this young girl's, a particular part of her body until they were raw. One evening when we were showering together, she showed me her features. They looked incredibly painful as they were red and swollen. I remember wincing when I looked at them. I also knew that she had relations with Trump at Jeffrey's New York mansion on regular occasions, as I once met Jen for coffee just before she was going to meet Trump and Epstein together at his mansion. That information was shared by the Department of Justice, and they pulled it down, and then they redacted the names. Is that not enough? Is that not enough for you? Does that not meet your bar? I'm lying. Right. Hi, Jen.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Hi. I can. Oh. Yes.
You're doing a great job, Steve. I know you're having a hard time holding it together. I just wanted to let you know that. And I also wanted to remind everybody that this cover-up has been going on since 2008, 9. Remember, in his plea deal for the 2008, case, he got work release for up to 12 hours a day to go to his office and work on a GPS, and he had people paid for by Epstein from the sheriff or the police or whatever, and there were victims coming into the office while on work release, and nobody reported that or stopped that from happening.
Jen, it goes back even further than that. It goes back to the 1990s because of Maria Farmer's letter to the DOJ saying this part happened. He stole pictures of me. He took pictures of myself and my teenage sister, nude pictures. So it goes back even further than the early 2000s. Goes back 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't know what these MAGA cult members need anymore.
I don't either. I don't either. But we're going to talk about it because that's the commitment we made. But it's not easy. I'm seething, but it's important. So
I can see it.
Yep.
But you're doing important work, and we appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thanks for being here.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Steve. Bye.
See you. Bye. I'm going to. This is also something that was released. Hang on one second. Let me just confirm this. So, guys, mods, this is the letter to Larry Nassar. Okay. This is to Larry Nassar, and it is signed by J.E. I will do my best. As you know by now, I have taken the short route home. Good luck. We shared one thing, our love and caring for young ladies and the hope they'd reach their full potential. Our president also shows our love of young, nubile girls. When a young beauty walked by, he loved to, quote, grab snatch whenever we ended up grab snatch, whereas we ended up snatching grub in the mess halls of the system. Life is unfair. Yours, J.E. When a young beauty girl walked by, he loved to grab snatch. Is that not enough? Is that not enough for you, MAGA? Is that it? Yeah, Larry Nassar is I think he's the gymnast guy. I believe so. We'll confirm that. Is that not enough? That's Epstein's note to Nassar. It was dated August 13th, 2013. Postmarked. The Department of Justice has officially released nearly 30,000 more pages of documents related to J.E. Some of these documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims made by those against President Trump that were submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election. To be clear, the claims are unfounded and false, and if they had a shred of credibility, they certainly would have been weaponized against President Trump already. That's their defense. Nevertheless, out of our commitment to the law and transparency, the DOJ is releasing these documents with the legally required protections for Jeffrey's victims. Again, what more do you need to see? Postmark, 2019, exactly. Postmark 2019. What more do you need to see? What more do you need to see? Can you not fill in the blanks yourself? Everything is, everybody in the world is lying. This is the cold, hard truth, right? These girls, children, 12, 13, 14, in fact, they referenced that some were in training bras. He went shopping, Jeffrey went shopping for their cotton underwear. 12, 13, 14 years old. My fear, and I think it's confounded in the truth, is that so many of you are so indoctrinated into the cult that if this happened to your own daughters, your own baby girls, your own strawberry blonde, Raggedy Ann, dirty-faced, skinned knees, little girls, and they named Donald Trump as somebody who assaulted them, what would you do? Would you say things like, why did you put yourself in that position? What were you wearing? Did you lie about your age? How could you be so stupid? These households, these Christian nationalist, patriarchal, nuclear family, the moral high ground households are literally telling their boys that, she probably tempted you, or she probably came on to you and you're just a guy and you're going to have needs and you're going to react. Right? And then you're going to tell your daughter that, you should really be careful about what you wear. You may not want to lead him on like that. What did you say that put you in that position? Yeah. Several girls at one time are invited. 14-year-old girls were invited to his house. 14 years old. 14 years old. Marla Maples, Donald Trump's wife, said, don't let your children anywhere near these men, including my husband. And then she kind of denied it. I wouldn't say that specifically about my husband, my daughter's father. So all the women, in this case girls, that make these claims against violence against them, what MAGA men, the alphas in the world, those that believe in Christian morality, those that believe that they have to demean the trans community because they feel like they're a threat. But yet your own children, your own children, you wouldn't believe them? No, most of you pathetic fucks would say, oh, you wouldn't make it to court. Because that's your response to everything. Bloodlust and violence. Maybe if you just decided to believe women, we wouldn't be in this position to begin with. Women don't report crimes because people don't believe them. The stats are 1 in 3. 1 in 3. So there's nearly 2,000 people in here. 500, 700, if they're women, have been assaulted. Are they all liars? Can you not believe them? These are girls. These are children. 12, 13, 14 years old. It's bad enough that you don't believe adult women when they're assaulted. You made up every fucking lie in the book about E. Jean Carroll. Our friend Amber's family member. You made up every lie in the book. There's no way that our president could do that. She made it up. She said grape was sexy. No, she didn't. No, she didn't. No, she didn't. You wanted to say it was a rig, couldn't get a fair trial, that the jury was rigged. There's no possible way you could get a fair jury trial in New York. It was just a civil case. It wasn't criminal. Grab him by the pussy. That's just locker room talk. Bragged about walking into dressing rooms. People try to make the argument, they sign a contract, and the contract then makes you, hey, the boss, they can do whatever the fuck they want. This is how pitiful you guys are. Pitiful. I don't understand what this comment is, Cynthia. Joe Biden had young girls at his house for Ashley's birthday parties? Okay. My daughter, when she was 6, 7, and 8 years old, we used to have parties here too. Okay. What's your point? Is that the bridge you want to die on? Is that the hill you want to die on, Cynthia? Really? Again, this is not about an individual. This is about thousands of survivors. Hundreds, if not thousands of men and potentially women. We don't even know the names of all the people who are guilty in these crimes, who have abused children, young women and young girls and boys for decades. For decades. All industries, all socio-demographic, I mean, mostly the elite, all industries, all nations, from musicians to entertainers to politicians to business executives to the corporate elite, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Young women put in a position where they were paid to recruit others. But no, you can't believe that. You don't want to believe the Katie Johnson case because of how damning it is. 4 instances in which she described being raped by him. Raped by him. At one point without protection. She asked, what happens if I get pregnant? He throws money at her and tells her to go get a fucking abortion. Paraphrasing, but that's pretty much what happened. If that wasn't the case, then why would he not sue her for defamation? Much like he's pulling his lawsuits against the Wall Street Journal for the birthday book, because then that would require discovery. But no, we're not going to believe them. We're not going to believe all the millions of victims of every single year globally. Girls that are trafficked, young boys that are trafficked, women that are violated, assaulted. It's their fault though, right? Because, men are men, just have needs. Whatever. Who cares? She confided in me about her casual friendship with Donald Trump, definitely seemed to have a thing for her, and she told me how he kept going on about her pert nipples. He liked flicking and sucking her nipples until they were raw. One evening when we were showering together, she showed me her nipples. They looked incredibly painful as they were red, swollen, and I remembered wincing when I looked at them. I also knew she had numerous sexual relationships with Donald at Jeffrey's New York mansion on regular occasions. I once met her for coffee just before she was going to meet Donald and Epstein together at his mansion. That was public, then it got taken down, then it was redacted and put back up with Trump's name removed. 14 years old. 14 years old. 14 years old, MAGA. 14. I'll say it again. She was 14 fucking years old. Thousands of survivors. Thousands of men who, and likely women who committed these crimes, allegedly. Are none of them to be believed? Thank you, Rainey. Are none of them to be believed? None of them? Are they all lying? Every single one? Or are only the girls and young women, children who made these claims against Donald Trump, are they the ones that are lying? But the claims made against everybody else, they're telling the truth? Everybody doing okay? I know this is rough. Please take a moment for your peace. If you can't stay, I understand. We should be angry, like so fucking angry about this. So fucking angry. So angry. This has got to motivate you. This has got to motivate you to be involved, to do something. You'll notice the do something button that will be on our live. In fact, tomorrow's live is going to be about what are we doing? What is this something that you're going to do? Programming, no show Christmas morning, but we'll be back on Friday. So we'll have a show tomorrow, no show Christmas Day, and then we'll be back on Friday. People have got to be this entire, to me, Let me see how I want to frame this. The enemy to all of us are rich white men. Okay? They are the enemy. White men, certainly. Rich white men in particular. Rich white men with privilege. Rich white men who function in a system built by them to defend them and to protect them. And if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about the entire fucking world, I don't know what will. You can just look at the people, you can just look at the history of our country. The people that are passing laws, the people that are leading companies, overwhelmingly dominated by white men. Overwhelmingly so. Your complaints about the system, you can blame people who look like me. Go ahead, blame me. I get it. I blame me too. And here we are. Here we are. Thousands of victims, children, crimes against them. The worst of the worst crimes. The worst of the worst crimes imaginable, perpetrated on children. And then these predators are being protected by other predators. But the Trump fleet of new battleships, but the ballroom, but the Qatari jet, but blowing up boats in the Caribbean. Real quick, let me just thank a couple people. Adrian, thank you for your 10. My favorite show on TikTok by far. Thank you for being a badass for humanity. I freaking love you and what you stand for. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate you. That's very kind. Christopher, thank you for your 10 on Cash App. I appreciate you very much. Lisa, also, thank you for voicing, keeping up the fight. Says Christopher, we love you, man. Appreciate you. I think the hardest part for most of us, right, when we talk about these things is it just seems so simple, right? It just seems so simple when it's not difficult to connect the dots. It's just not. Every single day, there's another layer of corruption. Every single day, there's more fraud. There's more lies. There's more deceit. There's more criminality. Tens of millions of Americans in this country don't seem to give a shit. And now we're talking about young girls, children. Hashtag girl dad. And girl and boy dad. And I just sit here and I just watch some of the comments scroll by, and I'll go to right-wing spaces, and I go there so you don't have to. You're welcome. And I don't recommend it because of what you see. We have a little community of creators on the app. We call it MAGA hunting. And then we often share when somebody's live. And all we do is comment on the despicable and horrible things that these people say. And a lot of them have gained large followings. They are despicably horrible individuals. They're horrible humans. Absolutely horrible. They do not deserve your time. They do not deserve your space. They do not deserve your energy. We've got bigger fish to fry. I'll debate politics with somebody, sure, all day long. Happy to. But man, oh man. The unscripted, how are you today?
I mean, that's a loaded question, isn't it?
It is indeed.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm okay.
So, I am a survivor. And what I can tell you is that this kind of culture is part of our capitalistic, patriarchal, and white supremacist culture as a whole. It's embedded, and MAGA defends it. They didn't believe E.G. and Carroll. They're the type of people who ask, what are you wearing, and all of that. I know all of that has been mentioned. Headlines constantly say, underage woman. No, it's not underage women. It's girls. Like when we see things like that, what we're really doing is laundering violence, disguising child abuse, and it's telling survivors that even the truth won't be spoken plainly for us. I'm in therapy for the rest of my life because of what was done to me. I have spent thousands and thousands of dollars on therapy. I am on medication for the rest of my life. And there are so many others like me who are now refusing that language, naming the harm, naming victims, naming the crime, not naming the victims because, like, you know, actual names, but naming them as what we are. We were children. And these words, they don't just describe reality. Words like that describe who gets believed and who doesn't. And so we need to talk about not just the language, because it matters more than people want to admit. Calling us as victims underage women, it does something very specific. It strips away our childhood, our innocence, and our culpability in that moment. It makes the abuse sound like a scandal between adults rather than what it actually was, the systemic exploitation, the SA of children by powerful men. And this isn't accidental. It's how grape culture protects men. So when media outlets, and I know that, like, as a fellow journalist, you know that our industry is culpable in this. It softens the violence. It shifts the sympathy away from victims and towards perpetrators, suggesting consent when none can exist, implying agency when there was coercion, grooming, and force. And it plays directly into misogyny. Because when the news came out about those Telegram groups of over 70,000 men discussing how to grape their daughters and partners, how did the right react? How did misogynists react? They reacted with, oh, that can't be true. That's absolutely not true. Epstein and Trump didn't have relationships with these girls. They didn't date these girls. They raped children, and Epstein trafficked them for other powerful men. And language is never neutral. It never has been. If headlines said men accused of raping girls, the public reaction would have been very different. But that kind of clarity threatens the system built to protect wealth, power, and entitlement. It is the laundering of violence. And that is exactly how it should be seen. NPR did it. PBS did it. Opinion pieces on Sky News did it. And it exhausts me. We need to call it what it is. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. It sits alongside a history of how gender, race, and class determines who gets childhood and who gets sexualized. And we have to understand that childhood isn't evenly distributed. Because in Western media and law, the depiction of who is framed as innocent, vulnerable, and in need of protection is very, very different. Because look at how Brock Turner was depicted as a star swimmer.
Exactly.
This is exactly what my PhD was supposed to be on before I was banned from the US. Many of the girls who were victims of Epstein were working class, from marginalized backgrounds, recruited through economic vulnerability, and not framed as the quote unquote ideal victims. And so the language quietly reinforces the idea that these girls are closer to women than children, closer to choice than coercion. It protects powerful men, protects capitalism, protects white supremacy. And so I'm actually writing. I was supposed to take a break for the holidays. I was supposed to be on leave from last week, Friday. No, I'm not. Because guess what? I'm writing. But I do want to do something with your permission, Steve. I would like to do a decompression for those in here. Okay. I want you all to sit up as back straight as you possibly can. Chin parallel to the floor. And breathe. Take a deep breath in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4. In. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4. One more time. In. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4. Drop your shoulders. Rotate them if you can. Head back with your shoulders back. Head forward with your shoulders forward. Rotate your head from one side to the other. And then the other way around. Keep breathing. And back to center. Take another breath in. And release. And then breathe regularly. Remember, from survivor to other survivors, your pain is valid. Your trauma is valid. You are valid. You are valued and you are loved. If nobody has ever told you this, I believe you, and it was not your fault. You were not a bad child. You are valid. Your trauma is valid. And so is your healing. And remember, you are believed. I would like for you to drink water, take your meds, eat something if you can. Yes, you deserve food. You deserve care and you deserve love. And not only drink water and do all of the necessary things, but I would like for you to say something kind about yourself today. Even if it is the tiniest thing, I would like for you to say something kind about yourself. We have been sitting through listening to the most egregious things. And you realized that your trauma is not happening right now. And you sat through and you listened and you empathized with every single victim in those files. You did amazingly today. And I would like to thank you for being here. And to Steve, thank you. Thank you so much for using your privilege to amplify the voices of those who have been deliberately silenced. I love you. Solidarity.
I love you too, friend. Thank you for being here. And thank you for that amazing moment. I appreciate you so very much. Have a safe week and please come back anytime. I appreciate you being here very much.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you too. I think I want to end there, to be honest. I think there's no better way to acknowledge what we just experienced with our friend Unscripted than to end there. I love you all very, very much. I'm so grateful that you are here every day with us. I am so grateful to be able to use my privilege and to have this conversation and to be honest with each other about what we're witnessing and what we're here fighting for. But I think that's a great place to stop. I think tomorrow morning we'll go at it again. We will continue to have our conversations, but tomorrow will be a little bit different. Okay, piggybacking on some of that positive energy that we just got to experience this morning. Tomorrow's live is going to be focused on what is the something that you're going to do. In true do something spirit, I think there's no better way to end today than based on the amazing experience we just went through, and also to kick off the holiday, specifically tomorrow and Christmas Eve, as we have a moment to talk about something positive. And what would that do something look like? So we're going to end there. But I love you all very, very much. Mods, you guys are incredible. Chat, you guys are the most amazing human beings I've ever met. Please join our Discord, and we'll see you tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock Eastern time. Thank you, friends. Peace. Get out there.